What do all of Spider-Man's villains say to him right before he foils their plans? Stop bugging me. Yeah, we're reviewing Spider-Man on PS4 today. Now, if you haven't heard, Spider-Man is Sony's fastest selling first-party game of all time. Of all time, guys. Selling 3.3 million copies in its first 3 days. Nearly beating the record that God of War set with 3.1 million back in April of 2018. Now, it's great that it sold so much, but is it good though? Because the sad thing is, just because something sells a lot doesn't necessarily mean it's good. I mean, Spider-Man 3 made $151 million in its opening weekend, but we all know how that turned out. Unfortunately, we all do. But by some miraculous miracle, Spider-Man is a spectacular game. Not only is it one of the best games of 2018, it's the best Spider-Man game ever made, period. Every inch of this game is oozing with love and passion, and it's made by a team that clearly loves the character. Now the question on your mind right now is this game good? And no, it's not. It's fucking amazing. Pun intended. But what makes this game so amazing? Well, let's dive in. Now, let's not beat around the bush, guys. This wouldn't be a great Spider-Man game if the swinging wasn't good, if it wasn't fire. And luckily, the swinging's the smoothest it's ever been. Swinging has always been a mechanic that prior Spider-Man games have struggled with. Oftentimes, it felt very stiff and organic and really constrained at times. And believe it or not, there's been Spider-Man games where he's either been solely indoors or in small constrained areas that really limit his movement and his swinging abilities. However, in this game, Insomniac has created such a deep and intuitive traversal system that's easy to learn but difficult to master. Swinging in Spider-Man is almost like a fighting game in the way you have to combo together different moves in order to gain speed, height, or to even just look badass. Now, don't let my analogy fool you. You're not going to be inputting a bunch of crazy button combinations just to do a basic swing. But what I mean is that Spidey has a variety of different traversal abilities like a basic swing, like a web zip, dive bombs, wall runs, and more that can all be chained together or combo together to create seamless movement. And learning how to properly combine those different moves and their timing takes some time to getting used to. Let's just say it takes time to get into the swing of things. But swinging in Spider-Man is all about flow and rhythm. But my favorite part about the swinging in this game is just how, as cliche as it might sound, it's just how cinematic it is and just feels. It's kinetic, it's epic, it has a grand scale. It's just this rush that comes over you. And when that music just crescendos when you start swinging, oh my god, it's so hard not to elicit some type of emotion. It was so hard for me not to get giddy because it recreated what I always fantasized and what I envisioned what it would be like to actually be Spider-Man moving throughout New York City. And after spending 30 plus hours, swinging never got boring. Sometimes all I would just do is just swing because it's just so much larger than life. That same sense of visceral energy of the swinging also transfers to the combat because combat itself is very easy to pick up and play. If you've ever played any of the Batman Arkham games, you'll get the general basics and feel down. And there's a lot of flexibility of how you choose to interact with your enemies and how you tackle different scenarios. For example, in a fight, you're able to use different gadgets like your web shooters, your web bombs, trip mines, and more, or you can use your environments using trash cans, enemy-zone grenades, car doors, sewer caps, and there are a lot of different combos that are at your disposal that allow for experimentation. You can dodge different bullets or incoming rockets or any attacks that are coming your way. You can decide to either go a very stealthy route or you can go balls to the wall, and there are different enemy types that require different strategies like using different gadgets against them or different combos. And then it took me a while to realize that there's a huge emphasis on mid-air combat in Spider-Man. Because as you fight, you're constantly filling up this 1 meter of energy that once it's full, allows you to take down enemies instantly in very, very slick fashion, I might say. You get more energy when you execute air juggling combos. And then it dawned on me that in a lot of the cartoons, movies, comics, etc., right? Spider-Man does a lot of his fighting off the ground because he is a hero that's all about mobility. And I don't know, I just thought that was very cool, and I remember that it dawned on me, and I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Why did I not ever realize this sooner? But then you get to see how agile and how graceful Spider-Man is during combat, because in reality, he's like a cross between a ninja and a ballerina. There is a skill tree they can use to unlock different abilities for Spider-Man as you level up. However, there's no huge differences in between those trees. One of my favorite parts of this game is how great of a job Insomniac did of writing witty and funny banter during random fights, and also during main story missions. We've always known Spider-Man to be kind of a jokester, but hearing his quips during combat definitely adds a level of lightheartedness to the game, and that's important as the story progresses and it takes more serious turns.
We're stuck in here for a while. Want to play 20 questions? No? How about we thumb wrestle? Okay, face punch it is. Yeah. Whoa.
And speaking of story, that is absolutely the best part about this game. The highlight of this game, why you should buy it without a shadow of a doubt, is how relatable and how heartfelt this story really is. This is a Peter Parker story through and through. Yeah, Spider-Man is the title of the game, but it's much, much more than that. It wouldn't sell as many copies or even sound as sexy if it was called Peter Parker. My biggest praise for the story is that Insomniac has established that this is their version of Spider-Man. It's their universe that isn't tied to any current continuity. It's a new Spider-Man for a new age. And with this, they take a lot of liberties with certain decisions and characters. When the game first starts, we find Peter Parker 8 years into being Spider-Man. We find him in one of the most relatable times of anyone's life. Being a recent college graduate, feeling lost, dealing with adulthood, dealing with real shit like trying to get a job, trying to pay rent, struggling with the girl/guy problems. And if you've seen any of the trailers or coverage on this game, and even if you haven't, because this isn't really a spoiler, the story becomes a lot more personal and intimate to Peter as he finds out that Martin Lee is Mr. Negative, which is the main bad guy of this game. With that knowledge, you see Peter really wrestle with him trying to cope and understand why Martin Lee is doing what he is doing. Peter loves Lee and knows that he's a good person and he's done good for others, and seeing him and how he tackles this as a villain is a sight to behold. And as I said earlier, the story is relatable. Peter represents the good in all of us. He always strives to do the right thing, and that causes him to make dumb decisions sometimes. And throughout different parts of the story, Peter reacted or said something in a way that I would. And the moment that really nailed this home for me was he's having a conversation with one of his friends. I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say he's having a conversation with one of his friends. And it's a serious situation, and then Peter cracks a joke. And the friend looks at him, and he gives him this weird look. And Peter just says, "I'm sorry, I just have a habit of making bad jokes in tense situations." That was so relatable to me, because as a person, I tend to do that. That's how I cope with certain situations. And what I love about Spider-Man is that Peter comes across as a real person, rather than just a character. And while I did say this is a Peter Parker story, other characters get to shine as well. Mary Jane is so great in this game. She's strong-willed, she's driven, she's smart, she's just brilliant in general. This is honestly one of my favorite version and depiction of Mary Jane across all mediums. And actually, a little shout out, a little side note really quickly is, I love the relationship that her and Peter have in this game. It is honestly the most realistic and relatable, and I keep saying relatable, but the most realistic and relatable depiction of a relationship and of a couple going through shit and trying to figure out if they're going to be together or not be together, and just seeing their genuine love and care for each other is one of the highlights of the story, actually.
Almost sounds like it's more important than your other job. I've never heard you talk like that before.
A lot can change in 6 months.
Why did you ask me here, Pete?
You know, just dinner between friends.
Friends. Is that what we are?
Well, maybe we could be, if that's what you wanted.
There's a lot of baggage here.
Yeah, sure, but is that so bad? I mean, baggage can carry good things too, like money and keys, and raspberry lip balm.
Do you remember why we broke up?
This is a trick question, isn't it?
Martin Lee is also a great character that you want to hate, but you just can't bring yourself to, and you just can't help but sympathize with him. Miles is as charismatic as ever, and just seeing his arc throughout the story is really a sight to behold. Aunt May's out there just giving that motherly wisdom that she's known for. And Yuri, oh my god, special shout out to Yuri, who kind of serves as Spider-Man's eye in the sky, kind of like a Commissioner Gordon of sorts. The dynamic between her and Spider-Man and the conversations they get into offer some of the most funniest, but also some of the most serious interactions in the story. And watching that friendship evolve was probably one of my favorite side arcs throughout the campaign. There are, of course, other characters that also steal the show in certain scenes, but I'm not going to spoil who they are for you. The writing is so strong throughout the story that I had to force myself to slow down. I didn't want to rush through the game. I really wanted to take my time and take in the sights and gather the collectibles that were hidden around. That alone is a testament to how strong the story really is. The story and writing is so strong and so powerful that I never expected to get emotional. Without spoiling anything, the last 20 minutes of the game was the most heartbreaking, intense gameplay experience I experienced of all 2018. Hell, probably one of the most tense and heartbreaking experiences I've ever had playing games, period. Now, the music in the game is also astonishing. It elevates the game to another level. In certain story beats and gameplay scenarios, they just have perfect themes that add a more intimate layer. The entire voice cast gives great performances, with Yuri Lowenthal as Peter Parker stealing the show. And this game is nothing short of gorgeous. Beautiful vistas are abound, and character and facial animations are larger than life. Now, no game is perfect, and while I'd love for Spider-Man to be nothing less than that, it's not. The biggest problem with the game is its pacing. Yeah, the story's great, but it just takes a while to get going, and once things start to ramp up, it slows down out of nowhere. This also applies to the gameplay because as soon as a story mission ramps up, you'll get this terrible stealth section where you play as Mary Jane. Now, I love Mary Jane, shout out to Mary Jane, but her levels are whack, they're terrible. These levels feel like such a drag and feel so out of place with what the game is, and it kind of hinders the overall experience. There were multiple times where the mission prior was building something up, only to interrupt the flow with an MJ level. I would dread them so much, I just wanted to cry. Now, those moments don't happen all the time, but they happen enough to where it's noticeable. It's a roller coaster in a bad way, where the ride is taking way too long to hit that drop. Just let it drop, man. I know I touched a little bit on the skill tree system earlier in the game, but my main issue with the game's 3 skill trees is that they don't offer enough variation in between them. They're just too similar. I would have loved to have seen a skill tree that drastically changes the way my Spider-Man plays. Maybe I have a Spider-Man that solely uses gadget. Maybe I have one that's all about ground combat. Or maybe I'm just all about air supremacy. I just felt that the skill trees really didn't add anything to the experience. Writing this part of my script was probably the hardest part about doing this video in general because I don't necessarily have a lot of problems or complaints about Spider-Man other than the ones I already listed. Yeah, there's bugs here and there, but of course every open world game has them. And then of course the camera does become an issue when it comes into super close quarters scenarios. But other than that, it really is a phenomenal game, and it kind of sucks that I wish I had more to complain about, but isn't that kind of a good thing though? Spider-Man is one hell of an experience. It's the embodiment of what every spectacular game should be. It's fun, moving, heartfelt, beautiful. It really showcases what this medium is capable of. From the combat, to the writing, to the animations, to the performances, Spider-Man is a high-caliber game, one that overcomes its flaws. It's a game that I find myself constantly thinking about. Insomniac Games has not only created the best Spider-Man game of all time, they created one of the greatest superhero games ever created. You owe it to yourself to play this game.